Ça va, m'a-t-il?
Alright, a final build update of the Facebreakers, Crushing Fist, Gladiator, and a build guide for this. Crushing Fist is a retaliation skill, which means you have to block before you start dealing damage. Once you block, you can use the skill once, and it deals a hell of a lot of damage. It has, in this case, a almost 2,200 effectiveness of added damage to it. And together with Facebreakers, which says we get more, up to, well, over 1,000 in this case, physical damage with unarmed melee attacks, which means we want to scale as much flat physical damage as possible, because the flat physical damage is then multiplied by basically 100. In this patch, Facebreakers can get above 1,000, up to almost 1,200% more if you're really lucky, using a volatile Vuln orb. It can either brick the item, then it divines it, and then adds a multiplier of 0.8 to times 1.2 of the value. So you can roll between, 500 something up to 1,200-ish. So, offensively, we want to scale as much flat physical damage as possible. We do this by using the Abysses for 40 to 60 flat physical damage. We use, in this case, 3 steel rings. We'll get to how we do that later. As they have a 4 to 14 flat physical implicit, and then you can use an essence to add even more flat physical damage, so in this case 12 to 20, because we have a catalyst of 20% on attack modifiers on all these rings. In this patch there was released a new belt, which is the probably more expensive part of this build. It is 40 divines that grants us the damage rank buff, which guarantees a crit. Every single hit is a guaranteed crit, so we no longer need to scale crit chance, which then scales effectively with Marlene's Fallacy, which grants us a hell of a lot of crit multi, which can also get above its original value of maximum to 40%. In this case it rolled up to 278, and then we have critical modifiers on it on catalysts, ending up on 333%. So we have lots and lots of crit multi on both Abysses and the Marlenes. We have lots and lots of flat fist from 3 steel rings and the Abysses, and guaranteed crit. And that all together multiplies into massive damage. Single hit. As you might have seen, we have 3 rings, and that's part of our Ascendancy. The Gladiator, we only want 3 nodes, so we have the increased base block chance, and we have the lucky block. Lucky means that you roll the chance of blocking twice, and if we use the Azadi's crest, we roll it 3 times instead of 2. Meaning that if we get 75% block chance, then the enemies have basically a 25% chance to hit you, and then that's rolled 3 times. So 0.25 times 0.25 times 0.25 is practically a 97 to 98% block chance once you've blocked once in the past 4 seconds, making you practically almost immortal from hits. Sometimes a hit will get through, and if you're really lucky, 2 hits will get through, and you might get 1 shot every now and then, but that's when you're playing really rippy mods. The further Ascendancy point is because of retaliation skills. It says we're using retaliation skill. They become usable for 2 additional seconds, And we have 50% chance for retaliation skills to remain usable and not consume a cooldown, which means we have 50% chance to use the skill over and over and over again. On the Merle's Fallacy, we have anointed a hidden passive on the tree, which grants us another 20%. And there's also Rune Graph of Time, which we can add to a mastery, which will grant us another 20%. Granting us 90% chance for this Christian Fist to not consume a cooldown juice. So we can spam it over and over and over again before it goes on a... How long is the cooldown? 1.9 second cooldown. What about the fourth Ascendancy point? Well, since we wanted to scale as much flat physical damage as possible, we went with the King in the Mist Ascendancy. So once you kill the King in the Mist, you will get a small shrine next to him, and he offers you a third ring slot. But you have to take one downside, which means either you can't use amulets, you can't use any belts, or utility flasks are disabled. In this patch, the Scream of the Desiccated states that you only have a shrine as long as you're not affected by any flasks. Which means the utility flasks are disabled doesn't really do anything. So that's an upside. So we have a guaranteed crit and a guaranteed, well, another ring slot basically for free. As you might see, I also have 5 life flasks. They all have instant recovery, which also then negates the affected by no flasks. Since they are life flasks, they're not utility flasks, hence that also works. On top of that, since we are blocking at 98% chance with some armor, we are capped on resistances and so on, the only downside to this build is basically damage over time. So how do we mitigate damage over time? Well, this node also grants us that. It grants us unaffected by poison, so poison is no longer an issue. We have immune to bleeding as long as your helmet has a higher armor value, which we get from the Abysses guaranteed. We have corrupted blood immunity on the replica reckless defense. Then there are of course some. Oh yeah, we also have purity of elements. Jesus Christ. Purity of elements also grants us immunity to elemental elements. So no ignite, no shock, no chill, freeze, whatever. On top of that, we also have some life regen. We have reduced damage taken if we have at least 20 fortification, which we get easily from this node up here. Retaliation skills, fortify or melee hit, and since the hit is so massive, it's guaranteed to just max out immediately in one single hit. On top of that, we'll get some life regen from this. We can also steal the Slayer node Brutal Fervor, which states that your leech doesn't end once you get to full life, so we're just constantly leeching non-stop. And we also get 10% damage reduction if we're leeching. So lots of reduced damage taken in general, from, specifically from damage over time. We also get 10% reduced from Soul of Arakali. We also have some life on block, but that's pretty much irrelevant. So how do we cap out the spell block? Because we're not using Versatile Combatant. Because that grants us another maximum, well, 10 reduced maximum block chance, and that's pretty bad. Well, we can use 2 replica defense jewels with +6 to block spell damage, together with 3 cluster jewels with prodigious defense, which grants us another 4% spell block. We can use a Tempest Shield for another 25%. Could these people shut up? Jesus. And the body armor, for the love of God. I need to turn off the volume of these NPCs next time I make a video. Yeah, the body armor, another 5% spell block on an implicit of Ether World, which then grants us, together with 2 jewels, with some crit multi-life and 3% spell block, will give us exactly 75% spell block. Our attack block is pretty much straight up guaranteed throughout all the other block nodes we take on the tree, plus the 50% base we get from Determined Survivor. So we don't even need to bother with attack block. As you might see, it's already overcapped by more than 25. We're also stun immune, because we don't really use any evasion. What other auras do we have? Well, not really auras. In this case, it's Flesh and Stone and Blood and Sand, just for the more area of effect and less damage taken in sandstones. It's only really helpful when mapping, because once you go into a boss, you just activate the Blood and Sand or the Flesh and Stone, doesn't really matter which one you have here, to Bloodstones to deal more area damage, and enemies take increased physical damage from hits, making this a harder hitting skill, which already one-shots pretty much everything except pinnacle bosses. Well, it makes it hit even harder. Like, it's pretty much overkill. Faustus, for the love of God, no. I think that's all you need to know. But the tree is fairly simple. PoE is in the description. It's very fun. It's clunky for single target because you need to wait for bosses to actually hit you, and then you have a 90% chance to actually keep on spamming the skill. If you don't hit the 90%, then you have to wait 2 seconds and then wait for them to hit you again. So that's the only clunky part, but it's highly efficient. Skill gems in general: Temper Shield, Pure Development, Blood and Sand, Flesh and Stone, Crushing Fist, Fist of War, Melee Fist, Pulverize, Life Tap because our reservation is kind of fucked, Brutality, cost of damage taken, Life Tap, Molten Shell, Shield Charge, Life Tap, Fast Attacks. And this part isn't necessary. I made this character specifically for delving, and Face Run just allows you to run through enemies. And it also grants you 30% more melee physical damage whenever it's up, but when you use it, you lose the buff pretty much. And it also removes your frenzy charges, so it's up to you if you want to keep it or not, because, well, either you can have a permanent, for 12% more damage and some attack speed, or you can have a hit or 2 with 30% more melee fizz. And 4% more damage from minimum frenzy charge, that is. So you have periodically 30% more melee damage, linked to automation because I don't want to press more buttons, life tap, and more duration. Preferably, I would like to have life tap as a added enchantment to this face run, so I can add cooldown recovery on this instead. I hope you enjoyed the showcase and the explanation of the build, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.